Hi, I'd also like to express my appreciation to my sisters, Dr. Maria Strack, and my sister, Professor Margaret Strack, and also to my brothers who I think found it very difficult for their three sisters to be the older sisters. We always felt it would be better if they were the older brothers. Dr. Billy Strack is an excellent gastroenterologist, and Mr. Stephen Strack, an excellent footballer, knowledge of football, and a former All Ireland winner for Kerry, County Kerry, and an excellent banker and community person in Tralee, County Kerry. So I'd like to thank all of those, and of course my wonderful children, Miss Vivian O'Brien, Miss Andrea O'Brien, Mr. Vincent O'Brien, Miss Charlotte O'Brien, and the wonderful and beautiful Miss Juliet O'Brien, who's always called Baby, and she was really annoyed because I kind of kept that name for her for ages, and really all the O'Brien family who helped me for many years in Limerick, and particularly Miss Sheila O'Brien and Mrs. Sheila O'Brien and Mr. Leonard O'Brien, and also the family of the Durkins, including Miss Bernie Durkin, Miss Bernie Durkin, that's her maiden name, and her husband, and Maura Durkin, and all the Durkin family. They were absolutely fantastic to me over many years, So I can't say that the O'Briens are, the worst of the worst. They were fabulous to me for many years, and just things got out of control, etc. So I would certainly not. I learned a lot about a lot of things from those people, but particularly sorry for my children that they were kind of in the middle here, and really the other side, really, because as far as I'm concerned, they were all pawns in a game, So we were all stitched up really by this, but nevertheless, I think the outcome hopefully will be for the benefit of Ireland, and the curiosity that the study that I've done to understand narcissistic control, and to see it here, working at the political level. I think it's everywhere, really. I don't think it's just in Ireland. I think it's widespread narcissistic control, and it's not just at the individual level. It's much more serious in governance all over the place, where as I'm saying, gaslighting is undermining democracy. This was going to be my next paper, but I think I've written it. So the gaslighting, sure, it's unbelievable what's going on, the amount of it. But anyway, I try and keep it clear of it, but it's very hard to stay a straight thinker when you're surrounded by all that gas everywhere. So the thing about it is, hopefully the judges will straighten our thinking out, but have no control over these judges. Someone said if they're Masonic and if they belong to these kind of cults, we're finished, So this judge, is associated with, cult, well, we've no chance if he's in the Masonic cult, and of course that would be all secret, handshake here and handshake there and all that kind of. These judges, some of them perhaps are, some of them perhaps aren't. I don't know their background at all, but this was a concern that they're all kind of linked in inverted commas. So I don't think so. I hope this one isn't, and it'll be a really good sign if this particular judge is not in this, like the other people I was talking to, my employer, NTDUD, and my medical team are not in this, they're really bright, but they're not in this kind of cult. They don't, they're not in this sort of cult business, the Masonic, this, or, anything else. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there could be, if in certain circumstances. So that would be kind of a conflict of interest. So that has to be taken out of it. So thanks to all of those people. Some of them are disparably disposed towards me, but they were very useful from the point of view of, not useful, but an interesting case for studying. But I didn't really study. I studied narcissism for many reasons. I mean, it's not just it is in families, unfortunately. It is in work. It's in personal life. It's now clear that it's in governance and everywhere, really. And we've really got to take. I think the American psychologists have done a brilliant job in and nailing down, particularly the likes of Professor Jordan Peterson, Dr. Les Carter, and all of those. So Dr. David Hawkins, they've nailed it, and then they've looked at it from the kind of how it influences children, and Dr. Great Childress and Dr. Shane Wadgen, all of those guys. But I'm trying to be more on the balanced perspective of Dr. David Hawkins, who says that, and the University of Harvard, who are now saying only from 2024 that narcissism is treatable. So perhaps all these people need to go to. That's why I have suggested we need arbitration with trauma-informed psychologists who'd be experts in narcissism and how it can distort, can kind of people get losing around themselves, and they don't all start in politics like this. No, they don't. Simon Harris didn't start in politics, or either did Micheál Martin, or any of those other people. They don't start off like that, but somehow the institution kind of creates, makes them kind of like this in a way. And it's very hard to stay straight in an institution. You really have to stay at the bottom, which is where I am. In order to stay straight. I'm not saying the top people are all like this, but it must be very hard for them not to become narcissistic, given the kind of, and that's why we need the protective disclosures to stop all of this narcissistic abuse going out of control, or narcissistic thinking going into even the illness spectrum of it. So when we don't have that, that's the other side of it. Does the protective disclosure people, do they understand these kind of narcissistic? So really the best solution, in my opinion, is to have arbitration with, the understanding of the pathology of narcissism and the cluster B spectrum, particularly, and that's really a psychological condition. There was some report out a few years ago that said the last 100 prime ministers, I don't know about Tony Blair or recent ones, but that they all had developed narcissism as a result of, yes, there's no surgery bags full, that we have that kind of a fear of authority, then the power goes to them, and they become ill without realising it, that they become kind of like gods or kings, without realising it, and we really don't want that. But this is the only way actually how we can resolve it, because it's going on everywhere, this kind of deference to authority, and the new gods now seem to be lawyers rather than, like religion, and that's very concerning, I think, for Ireland, because the Irish people have kind of deserted religion. So I think the church is a little bit more to do, and we need to hear more from the new Pope about what changes that he should make to bring people back to Catholicism. And as I say, Madonna there was talking about some kind of an interesting, more of a humanistic version of Catholicism that she follows now. And I thought that was very interesting, but it's unfortunately it was Judaism. That's the unfortunate part about it. That it came from the best part of Judaism, and I felt that's that the theory of it and everything was excellent, but it is terrible that what's happening there, that is associated with Judaism and the best and what's going on in Gaza. It seems that they're not living up to this ideology, which seems very similar to Catholicism, perhaps more humanistic, and contemporary. But it's very unfortunate that it is any association with Israel. But that's I would say that's not in the spirit of what it is all about. But it's very, very sad indeed what's going on in Gaza. Absolutely horrific, atrocious. But it shows what happens to people when they have no power. And I mean, it's everywhere, that kind of abuse, but it's particularly horrific in Gaza at the moment. And if only the world could happen. I have expressed major concerns that our international protections, like with the UN and all the other kind of, they're not strong enough. They're not powerful enough to be able to impose on places like Israel and other countries, a duty not to commit genocide, like that. So we haven't got enough power in our diplomatic or our political institutions to try and stop this, and we need to do an awful lot more about that. So that's why I'm thinking we need more diplomacy, more arbitration, and skills in that area, and obviously more powers to the United Nations. And I think the veto I think that's another thing that was used. It's too strong, and it gives power, like it limits the power of the UN, that veto, to try and do anything to help these poor unfortunates in Gaza. So there's a lot of issues there that need to be addressed, and I think they should be addressed as a matter of urgency. But when people have no power, I know what it is like to have no power. I've had no power for years, and I've been powerless for years and rendered powerless by a system who's trying to silence me for years and years and years, trying to bury me, I suppose, but they didn't succeed. No, they didn't. I'm moving on up, and I'm not going to be let down. I'll the Beatles, and I'm every woman a la Whitney Houston. Believe me, if you knew my story, you'd know. But I survived it because I had good people on my side, and all it takes is a few, and I had them on my side, but very much behind the scenes. So I had a very good team behind the scenes, and I won't mention who they are, but some were very senior in the Samaritans, this sort of thing, and they were, as I say, my good Samaritan, but as friends, just not as So I had some very much behind the scenes friends, and great medical team, and very good employers, and a few friends, a few good Gardaí and a few excellent solicitors, and I can't say they're good Gardaí. The Gardaí that helped me were absolutely excellent, first class, because they really knew what their job was all about, and they weren't corrupted or influenced in any kind of a way or code that might have been, going around, etc., etc. So I don't know now. This is all allegations that there was wrongdoing, but at the end of the day, really, didn't the good people win? Really, and if you look about it, all the few good people kind of won, hopefully. And if we might the right judge, if he's Masonic, I'm told we've no hope, but we hope he isn't in that class. I don't know what Masonic means, but it kind of means something that maybe would go against somebody like me. But I'm not sure that, I have no evidence that he's of this, but I don't know much about this judge, only that he's a really smart cookie, as I understand it. Apart from that, I don't know anything about him. So I mean, that's the way it should be. I don't know anything about who he is or where he's from or anything. I just don't think he's from Dublin, so it wouldn't be in with the Gonzaga Dublin 4 sit, who could be very snobby, etc., allegedly. So we don't really want them as judges, us country people. We prefer the country judge, or the normal, ordinary, run-of-the-mill person that knows the run-of-the-mill crisis that the country is in at the moment, and can identify with the squeeze middle, who are paying for everything and entitled to nothing. So that's the kind of person I am, but it's not just that. It's the way academics can be framed in a major way for doing first-class research and having it torn to shreds, and then the law changed in this kind of horrific way to try and shred it, in the public interest. Maria, not at all, to conceal the illegality of it, and in doing this, and having legal teams sort of giving the minister this advice and him taking it. I don't know. I can't. I'm alleging it is Micheál McGrath, because he's the person I communicated with about this, and he was really, complimentary of my work, and of course I wanted to protect it, but